Hello and welcome to CivilNet. In studio with us to help us celebrate the Golden Apricot Film Festival is filmmaker Kodagolian from Los Angeles. Welcome.
Hello.
Before we talk about your long career, let's talk about why you're here. You're presenting a movie.
Yeah, I'm premiering my film Somewhere Beautiful, my first feature-length film. It had a screening last night, and there will be one more screening tomorrow night at 5 o'clock. No, 9 o'clock, sorry. Yeah, at the Hayastan Cinema. So that's the purpose of my visit.
Before we take a look at the trailer, give us a little hint about what Somewhere Beautiful is about, how you were inspired to make this, what the storyline is.
The impetus for the film was that I wanted to make a film that was, at least the first half of the film, I wanted to do something that was unrehearsed and not unmeditated in a way that I was so used to doing commercials by that time where we would talk and think about so many things, and before we would shoot. So everything was prepared to the minutest detail. And when I did this film, I wanted to do it more like a jazz ensemble where you would get a group of people that are filmmakers, actors, camera people, and technicians, and just improvise a story. So that was the impetus of the film, and I ended up reimagining Atom Egoyan's calendar, which he did 20 years ago. And Atom gave me, full freedom to go and interpret it any which way I liked, and ended up doing that portion of the film in Argentina, in Patagonia, with Maria Alche, who's an incredible actress that I saw in a movie called The Holy Girl, that was produced by Almodovar, and it was in Cannes Film Festival. And Maria and I met, and yeah, she was the first person I called and said, "I would love to work with you," and she said yes. And then she helped me find Pablo Cedron, who is an Argentinian legend. And yeah, so that's how the film began.
Had these actors, before going to Patagonia, talented, experienced actors, and you, a talented, experienced filmmaker, cinematographer, had they seen Calendar? Did they know what they were trying to be inspired by?
Pablo had not seen Calendar, but Maria knew of Atom because they were, when The Holy Girl was in Cannes, Atom was there as well, so they knew each other. And I think she had seen Calendar, yes.
So you turn on the cameras and magic happens. Were you surprised by what took place in front of the camera?
Well, it was it wasn't as simple as that. I think what ended up happening was that before we started shooting, we would rehearse. And then I did have to write a script. I ended up having to write. I mean, in my case, it was like maybe 3 days before the shoot. I wrote the first 10 pages, and then as we were filming, I would like maybe stay up well after everyone had gone to sleep, and then write what I was going to shoot the next day. But we had definitely rehearsed. So a lot of stuff that you see now are things that, because the conversations that we came up with, like as we were scouting locations, we would talk, I would engage with the locals and find some of the stories that was relevant about Patagonia, and then with the actors we would rehearse those conversations, of course always knowing where we were going to end up. It was a film about a husband and a wife and a photographer who was guiding them through the country. So we had the idea of where the story was going to go, and it was just a lot of the scenes became variations on the theme.
So would you say you were cavalier and also lucky, because filmmakers don't really get to have that much, freedom? You gave yourself a lot of freedom.
I think so. I think in a way very lucky, because I know for sure that this is something that I might never again be able to do.
Or you never know, you might. Let's take a look at the trailer of Somewhere Beautiful so you can get an idea of what Albert's made.
So beautiful here. Where are we?
We are in heaven, baby. Wake up. Hello, Albert. You're probably landing in the next couple of hours. I just had to leave before you got home. I didn't want to fight about it.
Hello, my boy. Welcome home.
Soy fotógrafo.
Soy photographer.
No soy de acá.
No soy de acá.
No tengo idea de lo que estoy hablando.
No, we're still going to shoot the film. We just have to delay, that's all.
And you're probably realizing now how difficult it can be raising an infant on your own. It wasn't just this film that had you missing all the time. There was always something, some party or event.
Many people would do anything in this life, you know, Albert. Friends, adventures, second chances all the time. Maybe you don't see it now, but you will.
See what?
But we only have so much time.
I just want to live past all this.
Snap out of it!
What's going on?
Nothing is going on.
I need the distance, and I'm sorry if that hurts you.
You know what explorers used to do when they landed on a new land? Burn the boats.
So they couldn't go back?
Couldn't go back. They had to figure out how to go forward. Go forward, my friend.
So am I losing you? To him?
Do you remember that time when we were in France? You held my hand and you said if the world were to be destroyed around us, you would be happy, because the last thing you'd hear would be my hiccups.
And that's the trailer from Somewhere Beautiful, a film made by Albert Kodagolian, who's here with us at CivilNet. What have audience reactions been like to a film that is both fresh, creative, and also engaging?
Well, I showed the film in Sao Paulo Film Festival, and then before that, I'd shown it at the Directors Guild in Los Angeles, part of the filmmakers series, and it's funny because in Sao Paulo, I was really surprised that some of the audience members had knew Calendar, because it's one of Atom's most intimate films, but also one of his kind of least known or least seen. But yeah, I think the reactions so far have been quite positive. People. I think something that I commonly hear is how beautiful the film looks, and how engaging it. People find it, even though there are two storylines that they're following from Los Angeles and from Argentina, and how most of the time when people are watching this film, they're trying to figure out how these two stories are connected. And then, of course, it's open for their own interpretation of what they take out of it. But yeah, I think the feedback so far has been good.
And as you saw in the trailer, the second half was shot in Los Angeles. And to me, watching it, I was sort of in shock and sort of awed that here was the filmmaker, Albert, starring in the second portion. When did you decide that you would play in the second portion of this film? Well, the second storyline.
See, yeah, I think that was the reason I shot the second half 2 years later after the first half is because very much like Atom, we kind of decided to stay in the spirit of Calendar and edit the first half of the movie before we committed to what the narrative would be in the second half. And
Atom's second half narrative takes place when he returns to Canada.
Yeah, and Atom did it the same way. He edited the Armenian footage first, and then he wrote the second half. And luckily, I was collaborating with Atom during this phase, so I showed him the edited scenes from Argentina, kind of separate, and then I think one thing that came up in the conversation was that Atom said to me, he said, look, you know what, it's really fascinating what you've done as an experiment, but at this point you really have to make this your film. I mean, you've obviously taken the material and completely reimagined it. And he kind of asked me to make it really personal. And I think when I was thinking about how to make it personal, I kind of got this idealistic, kind of vision of doing something that kind of depicts my life, my day-to-day life with my daughter. And so, yeah, so that's how the second half of the film came out. I mean, of course, in calendar, Atom plays in the second half of the film, which is the director playing in the film. So in a way, that kind of became the reason.
It's a very interesting storyline, but to get here, you've had to invest a lot of years in education and in earning your place as a filmmaker. Take us back to when you imagined being a filmmaker and how you went through the process to become a commercial director and now a filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I think my filmmaking journey began during my college years. I think Dead Poets Society was the kind of the film that I saw, and when I saw that film, I just kind of really knew that I had to go into some kind of a creative, creative field, and then obviously the filmmaking was something when I went to Horizon and started kind of having my hands on cameras. And then I went to the USC Film School, which is where I got my formal education in film. And then when
University of Southern California, prominent film school, and Horizon being the cable outlet in Glendale for the Armenian National Committee.
Yes.
So those are two monumental institutions in Los Angeles.
And then after that, I made like about 5 or 6 independent films. The first 2 were films that I produced. And then the next few were films that I did the cinematography on. And then eventually I moved to London, and when I moved to London, one of the first chance meetings was that I met the director Mike Figgis, who had made one of my favorite movies, which is Living Las Vegas.
An epic film.
And Mike kind of took me under his wings, and the first thing that I made for Mike was a commercial for a charity called the National Civil Rights Movement, which deals with civil rights issues in Europe. And Saffron and his girlfriend at the time, Mike Figgis and Saffron, who was his girlfriend at the time, were on the board of this charity. So I made a commercial for them, and the beauty of it was that commercial ended up playing in the same cinema that I met Mike Figgis in Notting Hill. And obviously from that I got signed to Ridley Scott's production company. And
you've done some amazing work, short version commercials, long form commercials. Let's take a look at a few, and I think Levi Jeans is in there, so let's take a look at some of Albert's commercial work.
Forget about the crowds. Their fancy uniforms. And remember what got you here. Focus on the fundamentals we've gone over time and time again. And most important, don't get caught up thinking about winning or losing this game. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
Right back there, jump down to the top. You see the big ones on the back. You jump it back there.
And that reel from Albert Kodagolian, some of his commercial work that he's done for brands like Coca Cola and Budweiser. What is the challenge when you have 30 seconds or a minute and a half versus an hour and a half? What do you go through? What kind of transformations do you have to make within yourself to be able to pull off 30 seconds?
I think the challenge when you make a commercial is you're realizing characters and stories, and sometimes you see someone for a second, especially if like the work that you just saw. My work tends to be heavily narrative, and I think part of that is because I came from film school and I'd studied like traditional storytelling, classic storytelling. So when I started working in commercials, most of my commercials ended up being very filmic, with detailed characters and detailed story points. But I think the challenge is that you have such a short time to create characters, to create a setting, and to create a tone, which is really the most important part of being a filmmaker, is to finding a tone for a story. And every time it's different stories.
So what would you like to do more of in the coming years? Do you want more features? Do you want to continue commercial work?
Oh, definitely. I think both. I think I would love to definitely make more feature films, and I love making commercials, and it's something that I was so lucky that I started in London, and with such rich tradition of advertising, where they care so much about the craft of it and the stories and the humor, the wit. So yes, I think I would definitely continue making commercials, and then of course more films.
Fantastic. Before we go, Albert, a lot of people, there are a lot of artists out there. There are a lot of artists in this room, aspiring filmmakers who have ideas, who have scripts, who have made short films. What can you say to them? As a filmmaker who has established a name in Hollywood, you're making a living, you're doing well, people want you to make their commercials and their films. What do you say to those who, maybe specifically in Armenia, have a dream?
I think I would say to kind of really honor that dream. I think every person is born with a need to express themselves creatively. You see it in children. When you see children, they're naturally dancing and singing and drawing. And I think all of us as human beings have this kind of God-given need to express ourselves. So I would say to honor it, to persevere, and to not give up, because it's so easy to give up. And but I just like it's like everything else in life. To do something really well requires a great amount of discipline, a great amount of dedication, and time given to it. And I would say to everyone out there who is interested to keep their dream alive and to dedicate time to it and make it come true.
Don't give up.
Not give up.
All right. Thank you for not giving up and bringing us somewhere beautiful to the Golden Apricot Film Festival. It's playing again Thursday night, and hopefully it'll see a distribution for world audiences in the coming months.
Thank you so much.
Albert Kodagolian, thank you very much. And thank you at home for joining us on CivilNet.